So the iPhone 15 Pro seems like it's in a little bit of trouble. I mean, there are a lot of people complaining about overheating. It doesn't seem to be particularly sturdy, with reports of easily cracked chassis and scratched titanium sides. Not to mention Apple's latest iPhone case is a complete disaster. But is there any actual truth to these issues, or is it just being blown out of proportion? So before we get into talking about all of these controversies, it's important to look at them objectively and without bias, if that's even possible. Now, I'm certainly not an expert in iPhone manufacturing, but the purpose of this channel is to test things and examine the data to arrive at the most logical conclusion. And hey, there might actually be something seriously wrong with these iPhones that hasn't been pinpointed yet. But let's be honest, everyone loves to hate on Apple, and sometimes Apple really does deserve it. Apple does a lot of dumb stuff like antenna gate, bend gate, a $20 microfiber cloth. Now that one was really dumb, but I'm not sure if you've noticed, but the iPhone in particular seems to cop a lot of heat every time a new one is announced. And after thinking about it for a while, I think there are a couple of reasons why. There are just a lot of people who love Apple controversies and love fanning the fire. Die-hard Android fans, for example, who just hate the iPhone and think Android is superior. Can't we just all be friends and choose whatever phone platform meets our needs best? Also, I've noticed a vocal minority of outspoken iPhone users who were tempted to upgrade, but ended up calling the latest iPhone another ripoff or cash grab by Apple because they were expecting some kind of huge revolutionary update. Now, I'm not too sure why, because pretty much every major phone manufacturer spams a new phone every single year. I mean, USB-C and the action button ain't much, admittedly, but sometimes us iPhone owners gotta take what we can get, am I right? The point I'm trying to make here is that even the slightest rumor or issue is going to be picked up and potentially blown out of proportion. So let's try to get to the bottom of these issues and see if there's any truth. Let's start with the overheating rumor. Now, there are currently widespread reports circulating about the iPhone 15 overheating, seemingly across all models, but particularly with the Pro variants. Now, measurements taken with an infrared camera show temperatures in some individual cases as high as 46 degrees Celsius during intensive tasks like benchmarking or gaming. And some iPhone owners are also reporting that their phones get too hot to hold without a case. Now, some people on Reddit blame the overheating issue on iOS 17, and an analyst suggests that the temperature issue may be attributed to the lighter design of the iPhone 15 Pro, because it obviously switched from stainless steel to titanium, resulting in a noticeable reduction in weight, but potentially causing performance compromises, in their words. Now, to me, this makes no sense at all, because the interior shell of the iPhone 15 Pro still uses the same aluminium, that's right, aluminium, not aluminum for you Americans, that the 14 Pro uses. It's just the exterior shell, basically the edges of the 15 Pro, that is now using the titanium alloy. Now, Apple has commented on this overheating issue, offering explanations like increased background activity in the first few days after setup, or a potential iOS 17 or third-party app bugs. But to me, the most important thing is that right now, there's no clearly identifiable hardware issue that we can point at and say, yep, this is causing the iPhone 15 Pro to overheat. And we've had a lot of iPhone teardowns already. Now, if you remember the slower SSD issue on the M2 MacBooks, once you actually opened up the MacBook and looked inside the chassis, you could clearly see that Apple only put one NAND chip instead of two, which explained these slower speeds. We don't have that with the iPhone 15 yet. Now, I happen to have an iPhone 15 Pro. I've been waving it around this entire video, and I've done a ton of testing, and I'll spare you the 15-minute saga of running random benchmarks and, flinging a thermal camera all over the room and pointing at random numbers. I also have the benefit of living in the perfect testing ground for iPhone overheating, the northeast coast of Australia, one of the hottest places on Earth. And I didn't have any issues with overheating. I mean, I was playing demanding games for 30 plus minutes, hardcore social media use across like 5 different apps, even recording 4K 60 ProRes in the sun on a hot day. Sure, I mean, the phone did get hot, obviously, but overheating or like too hot to hold? No. I will say though that my iPhone was quite warm for a few hours during the setup process, and while transferring hundreds of gigabytes of files from my previous iPhone and my iCloud via my Wi-Fi network. Not to mention, there are just several algorithms that run in the background to learn your typical usage patterns or identify faces in photos, for example. Now, that process takes anywhere from a few hours to a few days. So if I immediately start running benchmarks or slamming the phone with hour-long intense gaming sessions and then holding a thermal camera on it, it might explain the increased heat output. But I've also had pretty much the exact same experience with every new iPhone I buy. It's just nothing new. Now, Apple has actually confirmed it does seem to be a software issue, and an iOS update is currently in development. Since there's no concrete evidence pointing to a hardware issue or even that the A17 Pro chip runs significantly hotter than the A16 Bionic in the 14 Pro, it's looking like these overheating reports are being blown out of proportion, at least a little bit. Another huge iPhone 15 Pro controversy is the apparently easy to crack iPhone 15 Pro Max, and to a lesser extent, the iPhone 15 Pro. Now, this entire controversy started from a single viral YouTube video from Jerry Rig Everything, where he purposefully bent an iPhone 15 Pro Max with his bare hands and made the comment that it seemed to bend easier than last year's model. And that's it. That's pretty much the entire basis for this weaker design rumor. Now, I am a big fan of Jerry's channel, but look, guys, let's be 100% honest here. It was not a scientific test, like, at all. There are so many variables. I mean, can he really tell the difference between a phone he bent over a year ago and this new one? Is he holding the phone in the exact same way as he previously held the phone? Maybe he did arm day at the gym last time and it felt like he was bending harder than he actually was. Tricep curls will do that to a man. Could it also be he had a dud unit with a manufacturing defect? Very unlikely, but still, like, there are a lot of variables, right? Now, to be fair, titanium itself is a pretty strong material, but what people have wondered is whether the rounded edges where the titanium meets the glass makes the glass more prone to breaking or cracking when compared to the flat edge design of the 14 Pro. And this is why it's important to conduct testing with stricter protocols. Now, Consumer Reports, for example, usually does a pretty good job with this, and they tried to repeat the findings with the use of a slightly more scientific methodology. Remember that Consumer Reports was one of the leading critics of the iPhone design back when the iPhone 6 bend gate was a thing. They found that the iPhone 15 Pro Max did not easily bend or crack. In fact, it actually resisted 110 pounds or 50 kilos of force to be exact. And don't know about you guys, but that is a lot of pressure to be putting on a thin phone. Now, Consumer Reports did more testing, including dropping the phone onto a stone base 100 times, and the phone survived with no major damage. But based on some other drop test and general try to damage a brand new iPhone in any way possible videos that I've seen, it does appear that the iPhone 15 Pro is slightly easier to damage compared to the previous 14 Pro. But these tests consist of dropping the phones over and over again onto things like tiles or concrete, all without cases, and sometimes from above pocket height, which is not super indicative of real life, right? And the damage is often completely random, as some of you would know if you're also a member of Smashed iPhone Club, like I unfortunately am. Sometimes you can just drop your phone from like 3 meters and it's perfectly fine, versus sometimes you drop it from like 30 centimeters and it hits at the worst possible angle and it breaks. And don't forget that the back glass on the 15 Pros are now much more easily replaceable and is now half the cost to repair than the 14. And I would gladly trade a little bit of robustness for a much cheaper repair in the unlikely situation I completely smashed the glass on my phone and I don't also have Apple Care. Now, one thing I will say here though is that the titanium on the iPhone 15 Pros can noticeably scratch, but only really if you have a colored option. Natural titanium, like the name suggests, and is also the one I have here, is the raw color of the titanium. and to actually color it, you actually need to add a separate layer on top of it, which can scratch off, leaving noticeable lighter scratches, exposing the natural titanium color underneath. Now, it's the same with a lot of other phones that use some kind of metal alloy in the chassis, and this is easily solved by going with either the natural titanium option to reduce the visual impact of scratches, or just using your phone with a case like pretty much everyone already does. Now, one thing that we do actually have quite a bit of data on is the fine woven case. You've probably heard about this latest iPhone case from Apple. It's a brand new fabric, and Apple claims that it's made from luxurious and durable micro twill. It's kind of like a soft, silky fabric and costs a very cheap and very affordable $59 US for any of the phone cases. The problem is that the material sucks. Seriously, it scratches exceptionally easy and shows wear and tear almost instantly. I would buy one for the purpose of this video, but I'm never going to use it in my life, and I don't really want to contribute to landfill. So I went into an Apple store. You'll see that a lot of the fine woven cases they have on display look pretty beat up, and apparently Apple employees are having to replace these cases on an almost daily basis. Now look, I'm honestly not surprised that this issue is happening. If you think about automotive suede that you see in a lot of cars, for example, it's a somewhat similar material to the microfiber used on these iPhone cases. Now, I had a 2014 Subaru BRZ before I sold it, rest in peace, with suede on the armrests, and even after 7 years, it looked really good. And the reason it looked really good was A, I took care of it, it was my baby, and B, because it was a thicker suede with more distance between the actual fibers and the backing on the bottom, so scratches wouldn't appear so easily. Also, automotive suede is located in places that don't usually get a ton of abuse. Unlike, of course, a phone case. It gets scratched by fingernails, caught on pockets or zippers, slid across tables or rough surfaces, pressed up against a MagSafe charger for 8 hours a day. The list of abuse goes on, and this is not good for fine material like suede or the microfiber fine woven cases. Honestly, I'm surprised Apple hasn't just removed them from the stores and stopped selling them. They probably will once they sell out just to get rid of stock, so don't line Apple's pockets, guys. Just don't buy them. Get a faux leather or rubber case from a company that actually puts more effort into their iPhone cases. So yeah, there seems to have been a lot of jumping to conclusions and hyping controversies because it's popular to hate on Apple and controversies get clicks. But it's important to cut through all the crap and examine the actual data and facts that we have access to. And so far, touch wood, not actually sure if that's wood, but it'll do. Those of us that have purchased these devices or are possibly looking to pick one up don't really have anything to worry about, except the fine woven cases. That is a steaming pile of crap that you should avoid. But yeah, apart from that, I've been using my 15 Pro for about 10 days now. I haven't had a case on it the entire time. Still looks really good. It is still early days, and I think it's definitely too early for anyone realistically to make a proper review or to say definitively if it does or does not have issues with it. But apart from that, thank you guys for watching this video. Any questions, let me know down below, and I'll catch you in the next one.